The sound of Boone's truck creaking under the weight of the shifting soil jolted him awake from his thoughts. He frowned as the rear wheel sank deeper into a strange patch of grass, the ground giving way like soft butter beneath the weight of his old Chevy. Something was off here, something wasn't right. Curiosity tugged at him. He climbed out of the cab, wiping sweat from his brow as the Texas sun beat down fiercely, its rays piercing through the haze. The air hung thick with humidity, a reminder of the long summer days that stretched endlessly across the panhandle. Boone squinted at the ground, noticing the way the grass grew unevenly, as if it were hiding something beneath its emerald facade. As he approached the spot, he noticed a glimmer of concrete peeking through the grass, an anomaly amidst the sprawling land he had known his entire life. A chill crept up his spine, but he brushed it aside and glanced back at his truck. It was just a patch of dirt, he told himself. Nothing to be concerned about. Still, that glimmer drew him closer like a moth to a flame. With a heavy sigh, Boone grabbed his shovel from the truck bed, its metallic handle cool against his palm, and began to dig. The first few thrusts of the blade felt satisfying, but soon it met resistance. The ground seemed to shift beneath him as he pushed deeper, revealing a concrete slab adorned with rusted handles. Boone's heart raced. What on earth was buried under his land? A sense of urgency urged him on, the whispers of curiosity and dread mingling in the air around him. Finally, with one last heave, he pried the slab open, the grinding sound echoing in the stillness of the panhandle. He was met with a dark cavity, and what lay inside took his breath away. Stacks of bottled water, crank radios, and notebooks with Y2K scrawled across their covers greeted him, as if the past had come alive in a way he never expected. A chill crept up his spine as he realized what he had stumbled upon. This was no ordinary cache. It was a time capsule of fear, a survivalist's stash hidden away from the world. As Boone sifted through the items, his hands trembling, a handwritten note caught his eye, addressed to the future owner of this land. With shaking fingers, he unfolded the paper, its edges worn and yellowed. If the world doesn't end, may we at least learn to take care of it. The words resonated within him, stirring memories from a time when the world felt on the brink of chaos, a time when the air was thick with apprehension and the skies lit up with fireworks. A memory flickered in his mind, a night in 1999 when neighbors gathered, sharing their fears and hopes, uncertain of what the new millennium would bring. Boone stood among them then, a part of a community bound by worry and resilience. Now as he stared into the depths of the cache, he felt that same weight of uncertainty settle over him, heavier than anything he had ever known. Boone Thompson was a man of simple means and deeper thoughts. Living on a weathered ranch in the Texas Panhandle, he had spent the better part of his life working the land that had been passed down from generations before him. Every morning he awoke before dawn, the rooster's crow cutting through the stillness of the early hours. He would sit on his porch, sipping coffee as the sun rose above the horizon, casting golden rays over fields of wheat that stretched endlessly, undulating like waves in the wind. Boone loved the rhythm of his life, the simple pleasure of waking up, brewing a strong cup of black coffee and watching the day unfold in front of him. As he stood on his porch that particular morning, the familiar sounds of the ranch wrapped around him like a warm blanket. The old barn, with its peeling red paint and creaky door, stood as a sentinel to his labor, a witness to years of toil, sweat, and occasional laughter. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, illuminating the dew-kissed grass and filling the air with the crisp scent of nature. Boone savored these moments, knowing how precious they were. Breakfast was a hearty affair. He toasted slices of bread while frying eggs fresh from his chickens. The familiar sizzle of cooking filled the kitchen along with the soft crackle of the AM radio broadcasting local news. As he poured himself a second cup of coffee, Boone couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. The sound of the radio was soothing, but the news reports were increasingly filled with stories of uncertainty and division. After breakfast, he ventured outside to tend to the fields. The sun beat down relentlessly and sweat trickled down his back as he moved from tractor to barn, planting seeds for the next harvest. He loved the work, the rhythm of it. but sometimes he felt the weight of the world pressing upon him, a burden he carried silently. The quiet of the panhandle was punctuated by whispers of change. Neighbors discussing the latest headlines, the encroachment of technology, and the way people seemed to drift further apart. Boone missed the days when everyone dropped by unannounced just to share a moment or a meal. One afternoon, while waiting for the sun to lower in the sky, Boone took a break and leaned against the fence, watching the horizon change colors. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, and a gentle breeze rustled through the grass. He paused to take it all in, feeling the weight of the day lift slightly from his shoulders. As he strolled down the dirt road that stretched past his property, Boone couldn't help but reflect on the fragility of human connection. He could hear the faint hum of a lawnmower from a nearby house and the occasional bark of a dog, but the laughter, it was missing. Boone thought back to last summer when they had hosted a barbecue at his place, filling the air with laughter and the scent of grilled burgers. Those evenings, with friends gathered around the fire, sharing stories and memories, felt like they belonged to a different time. He remembered how they had raised their glasses in a toast, not just to good food, but to friendship and community. It had been a while since he'd felt that sense of togetherness, and the thought stirred something deep within him. That evening, Boone decided to take a walk down to Greg's farm next door. Greg was a fellow farmer who shared a passion for the land and a love for the simple life. As Boone approached, he noticed Greg working diligently in the field, his brow furrowed in concentration. Boone raised a hand in greeting. "Hey Greg, how's it going?" "Just another day in paradise," Greg replied, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "You know how it is." "I do indeed. You got any plans for dinner tomorrow night?" Boone asked, determined to reconnect. "Not a thing," Greg said, his expression brightening. "What do you have in mind?" Boone felt a rush of excitement as he invited him over for a barbecue. "I'll fire up the grill and you can bring your famous potato salad." "Deal," Greg grinned, and Boone could see the spark of camaraderie returning. "I'll bring some cold beers too." As Boone walked back home, he felt lighter on his feet. It was a small step, but it felt significant, a bridge toward rekindling the bonds that had grown thin. He returned to the quiet of his ranch, the creaking of the old barn welcoming him back. That night he prepared for the next day, setting up the grill and arranging the backyard, ready to host friends once more. But that feeling of uncertainty lingered, gnawing at him like an unanswered question. It wasn't until the next morning, as he sat on his porch with his coffee, that he recalled the strange patch of grass he had stumbled upon. The image of that concrete slab, the hidden cache, and the haunting note sent a shiver down his spine. Boone finished his coffee and felt a pull toward his truck. The shovel was still in the bed waiting for him. Perhaps it was time to dig a little deeper, not just into the earth, but into the meaning behind that stash. He climbed into the cab and drove back to the site, the familiar hum of the engine a comfort to his racing mind. Arriving at the spot, Boone's heart pounded as he climbed out of the truck. The sun hung high in the sky, casting long shadows across the land. He knelt beside the pit he had dug just days before, fingers brushing against the dirt. As he looked down into the dimness, he remembered the note's words, a reminder that if the world didn't end, they must learn to take care of it. He began to sift through the items again, feeling the weight of each one in his hands. The bottled water seemed to mock him, a testament to fears long past. The crank radios, relics of a time when paranoia reigned supreme, and the notebooks held words penned with desperation and hope. Boone flipped through the pages of one notebook, filled with lists of supplies, emergency plans, and sketches of a world that could fall apart at any moment. As he read, Boone felt an overwhelming sense of connection to the unknown person who had buried these items. Was this someone who had lived in fear of the future? Or were they simply a reflection of the anxieties that bound communities together during uncertain times? Each item told a story, an echo of the concerns that had once gripped a nation. In that moment, Boone realized the significance of the items. Beyond survival, they represented a time when people came together. It was a call to remember that even in the face of fear, there was strength in community. Boone thought back to the conversations he had with his neighbors, the moments of laughter and shared burdens. He decided he wouldn't keep the stash hidden away. These items needed to be shared. He grabbed his phone, hesitating for a moment before dialing. When the operator answered, he took a deep breath. "I found something on my property," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. "I need you to know it's not a hideout. It's a neighborly stash." The operator chuckled, sensing the absurdity in his words. "A stash, you say? You've got me curious, sir." Boone smiled, even as uncertainty gnawed at him. "I just think it's important, to share a piece of history that reminds us of who we are." After hanging up, Boone rushed back to the barn and began writing down the numbers of the neighbors who still knocked on his door, the ones who shared meals, laughter, and burdens. He felt a sense of purpose, a desire to bring them together, to remind everyone of the strength found in community. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Boone reflected on his life. Maybe the end of the world wasn't about the stockpiling of supplies, but about the connections we forge. A world without calls for one another's names felt far more daunting than any looming disaster. That night, Boone gathered his neighbors at the barn, its faded wooden walls holding memories of gatherings long past. He shared the story of the hidden stash and the items he had unearthed, watching as their faces shifted from curiosity to intrigue. Stories began to flow, laughter filled the air, and the warmth of connection enveloped them. As they reminisced about the year 1999, the shared fears of Y2K, and the bonds that had formed over those uncertain days, Boone realized that what he had unearthed was not just a cache of supplies, but a catalyst for connection. Under the glow of string lights hanging from the barn, people shared their own experiences of fear and hope, moments when they had come together as a community to face the unknown. Mary spoke up, her voice tinged with emotion. "I remember the panic we all felt. We stocked up on canned goods and bottled water, convinced that the world was going to fall apart. But what I remember most is how we all gathered here, sharing what we had, comforting one another in those anxious days." It was about unity. Boone nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "Exactly. We're stronger when we stick together. This stash serves as a reminder not just of the fears we faced, but of the strength we found in each other." As the evening wore on, Boone felt a wave of contentment wash over him. The weight of isolation that had pressed upon his shoulders began to lift. The faded memories of fear had transformed into a tapestry of resilience, woven together by the strength of community, laughter, and shared experiences. Around the fire pit, neighbors exchanged stories of their own caches of supplies, water bottles, flashlights, and even some humorous anecdotes about their overzealous preparedness. Laughter erupted as Greg recounted his wife's insistence on purchasing an entire pallet of toilet paper, her eyes wide with worry about what might happen. "We didn't need to worry about the apocalypse. We just needed to survive a week without a grocery store," he said, his laughter infectious. As Boone looked around at the faces illuminated by the flickering firelight, he felt truly connected. The community came alive again, rekindling those ties that had grown thin over the years. There was a sense of camaraderie that filled the air, a collective understanding that they were all in this together, no matter what uncertainties the future held. As the night wore on and the stars twinkled overhead, Boone took a moment to step back and breathe it all in. The sounds of laughter and conversation echoed in the barn, and he knew he had made the right choice by sharing what he had uncovered. The items he unearthed were more than just relics. They had become symbols of hope, reminders that even amidst fear there existed a heartening bond among them. In the quiet of his ranch, surrounded by the soft glow of lantern light and the presence of friends and neighbors, Boone understood that true survival depended on the bonds they nurtured, the hands they shook, and the voices they remembered. He watched as people exchanged numbers, promising to keep in touch more often, to gather again, and to share both joys and burdens more freely. As the lanterns cast soft shadows on the walls of the barn, Boone felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The weight of the world felt lighter, and for the first time in a long while he was filled with hope. hope for the future and for the community that had come together once again. Boone raised his glass, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. "To connection," he said, his voice steady. "To friends and neighbors who remind us that we are never alone." "To connection," the others echoed, raising their glasses in solidarity. With each clink of their glasses, Boone felt a warmth blossom in his chest. The fear that once hovered in the air was replaced by something more powerful, a shared commitment to look out for one another, to reach across the invisible barriers that had begun to form, and to remember that they were stronger together. And as the stars twinkled above, Boone knew that this gathering was just the beginning. The days that followed the gathering at Boone's barn were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The laughter of his neighbors echoed in his mind, a steady reminder that community was alive and well in the Texas Panhandle. Boone found himself waking up each morning with a smile, ready to tackle whatever the day might throw his way. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting its golden light on the fields, Boone settled into a routine that felt more vibrant than it had in years. He spent his mornings working the land, turning the soil, planting seeds, and tending to his animals. The familiar tasks were comforting, yet invigorated by a fresh perspective on everything he did. He often caught himself glancing toward the barn, where remnants of the gathering still lingered, empty beer bottles and scattered chairs that served as a testament to the camaraderie they had shared. One afternoon, Boone decided to visit Mary at her diner. The small establishment was a local favorite, its walls adorned with photographs of the town's history. As he stepped inside, the comforting smell of fried food enveloped him, and the sound of sizzling griddles mingled with the chatter of customers. Mary looked up from the counter, her eyes lighting up at the sight of him. "Boone, come on in," she called, wiping her hands on her apron as she made her way over. "What can I get for you today?" "Just a coffee and maybe a slice of that pie you're famous for," Boone replied, taking a seat at the counter. Mary poured him a cup of steaming coffee, setting it down in front of him with a smile. "You've been a stranger lately. Heard you had a get-together at your place. How was it?" "It was great, actually. We had a good turnout, and it felt nice to reconnect with everyone. It's easy to forget how important those bonds are," Boone said, a smile spreading across his face as he recounted the evening. Mary nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking the same thing. With everything going on in the world, it's easy to lose sight of what really matters. We should do this more often." Boone agreed wholeheartedly. "I'd love to help organize something for the community. Maybe a potluck or a game night. Just something to bring everyone together." "I like the sound of that," Mary said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Let's plan it. We can hang some lights outside, set up some tables, and get everyone involved." They spent the next hour brainstorming ideas, laughter punctuating their conversation as they reminisced about past gatherings. Boone felt a surge of excitement course through him, a sense of purpose that transcended his daily routines. He wanted to create spaces for people to come together, to remember the strength they had found in one another. Meanwhile, across town, Greg had been similarly inspired. He was busy tending to his crops, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Boone's gathering. After finishing his work for the day, he decided to drop by Boone's ranch to discuss the idea of a community event. Boone was in the barn, sorting through some tools when he heard a familiar voice calling from outside. "Hey, Boone, you got a minute?" "Of course, Greg, come on in," Boone replied, wiping his hands on his jeans as he stepped out to greet his neighbor. Greg walked in, his face flushed from the heat of the day. "I've been thinking, we should really get the community together again. I was chatting with a few folks at the feed store and they all seemed to think it was a great idea. I was just talking to Mary about organizing a potluck," Boone said, his eyes widening with excitement. "We could set it up in the field behind the barn. There's plenty of room and we can make it a whole day affair." "That sounds perfect," Greg agreed, his enthusiasm palpable. "We could have games for the kids, maybe a horseshoe tournament or a pie-eating contest. Everyone loves a little friendly competition." As the two men began to flesh out their ideas, Boone felt a spark of energy that had been missing for far too long. They mapped out a plan, deciding to involve as many neighbors as possible. They would reach out to families, invite everyone, and make it a day dedicated to connection, laughter, and shared experiences. Over the next few days, Boone and Greg worked tirelessly to spread the word. They set up flyers at the diner, the general store, and even at the local church. Boone's phone buzzed with messages as people began to express their excitement about the upcoming event. The energy was infectious, and Boone could feel the anticipation building in the community. As the day of the potluck approached, Boone found himself reflecting on the events that had led to this moment. He thought about the hidden cache he had discovered and the connection it had sparked among his neighbors. It was as if the fear and uncertainty that had once loomed over them had transformed into a sense of possibility and hope. When the day finally arrived, the weather was perfect. The sun shone brightly, and a gentle breeze danced through the fields. Boone set up tables and chairs, draping colorful tablecloths over the surfaces. He hung strings of twinkling lights from the barn, creating a festive atmosphere that promised warmth and celebration. Mary arrived early to help set up, bringing along a tray of her famous lasagna and a couple of delectable pies. "I couldn't resist," she said, grinning as she placed the dishes on one of the tables. "I had to make sure everyone had enough to eat." As the clock ticked closer to the event's start time, Boone watched as cars began to pull into the field. Families arrived with children running ahead, laughter filling the air as they greeted one another. Boone felt a wave of joy wash over him as he saw familiar faces, each one a reminder of the strength they found in each other. Before long, the tables were filled with an array of dishes, casseroles, salads, fried chicken, and desserts that would make anyone's mouth water. The smell of food wafted through the air, mingling with the sound of chatter and laughter. Boone moved among the tables, greeting neighbors and sharing in their excitement. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, the atmosphere buzzed with life. Greg and a few others had set up a games area for the kids, complete with sack races and a makeshift obstacle course. Nearby, a group of adults gathered around a horseshoe pit, their friendly banter punctuated by shouts of encouragement. Boone took a moment to step back and soak it all in. The laughter, the conversations, the sense of community felt like a balm to his soul. It was a reminder that no matter how chaotic the world outside felt, they had each other. As the evening progressed, Boone grabbed a plate and filled it with a little bit of everything. He found a quiet spot under the trees, where the soft glow of the string lights above added to the magic of the evening. He took a moment to reflect on how far they had come, from a sense of isolation and fear to a night filled with joy and connection. His thoughts were interrupted when Mary approached, carrying 2 plates piled high with food. "Boone, you've got to try this," she exclaimed, plopping down beside him. "I made sure to bring a little of everything." "Looks delicious," Boone chuckled, taking a bite. "You always know how to impress." Mary smiled, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "It's not just the food, Boone. It's about the moments we create together. This is what it's all about." "Look at everyone enjoying themselves. It feels like old times." He nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude for the connections they had rekindled. "You're right. This is what we've been missing." As the night wore on, laughter filled the air. Stories were exchanged and moments of joy were shared. Boone watched as the children played, their laughter ringing like music in the warm night. He felt a deep satisfaction in his heart, a sense of fulfillment that went beyond anything he had ever experienced on the ranch alone. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Boone couldn't help but think back to the hidden stash he had discovered. It had been a relic of fear buried under layers of soil and time, but it had also become a catalyst for connection, a reminder of the strength that lies in community. It was a testament to the fact that even in the darkest of times, hope could be unearthed. With the evening winding down, Boone found himself sitting with Mary and Greg, reminiscing about the past and dreaming about the future. They reflected on the way the community had come together in a time of uncertainty and how important it was to cherish those bonds. "Let's not let this be a one-time thing. Greg proposed, looking around at the smiling faces. We should do this again, maybe once a season. It would give us all something to look forward to. I love that idea, Mary agreed enthusiastically. We could even rotate who hosts. It keeps everyone involved and connected. Boone smiled, feeling the warmth of their camaraderie. I'm all in, he said. Let's make it happen. As the stars twinkled above, the soft glow of lantern light illuminated their laughter and hope. Boone knew that they had created something lasting, a renewed commitment to one another and a promise to nurture the bonds that held them together. As the last guests began to depart, Boone felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. He helped Mary and Greg clean up, their laughter mixing with the sounds of the night. The remnants of the gathering would soon fade, but the connections forged that evening would linger in their hearts. When the last of the lights were dimmed and the barn stood silent once more, Boone stepped outside to take a deep breath of the cool night air. He gazed up at the vast expanse of stars, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the people in his life. He thought of the note he had found, the words that had sparked the idea of connection, and how far they had come since that fateful day. The world outside may have seemed chaotic, but within the small community of the Texas Panhandle, there was a pulse of resilience and hope. Boone understood that true survival depended not just on the provisions they stockpiled, but on the relationships they nurtured. As he stood in the quiet of the night, Boone felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that he would never have to confront them alone. The weeks turned into months, and the community events became a cherished tradition. Each gathering brought new faces and stories, and the bonds between neighbors grew stronger. Boone found himself more involved than ever, helping to organize activities, participating in potlucks, and even hosting a few game nights under the stars. The joy of connection filled his heart in ways he hadn't anticipated. As spring turned into summer, Boone and Greg decided to host a community barbecue to celebrate the beginning of the season. They set to work planning a bigger event, one that would include not just food and games, but live music, inviting local bands to play. Boone reached out to his neighbors, gathering suggestions and ideas, and the excitement was palpable. On the day of the barbecue, Boone woke up early, a sense of anticipation buzzing in the air. He fired up the grill, the smell of charcoal filling the barn as he marinated meats and prepared sides. Mary arrived with her famous potato salad and several desserts, and they set up tables and chairs outside, turning Boone's farm into a festive gathering place. As the sun rose higher in the sky, families began to arrive, filling the space with laughter and conversation. The smell of grilled burgers and hot dogs wafted through the air, mingling with the sounds of children playing. Boone moved among the tables, greeting everyone and making sure they felt welcomed. As the event unfolded, Boone found himself enjoying the camaraderie that filled the air. He watched as families played games, neighbors engaged in friendly competition, and children chased each other around the open fields. It was a beautiful sight, a tapestry of life and joy woven together by shared experiences. As the sun started to set, a local band began to play, their music drifting through the warm summer air. People began to gather around, some dancing, others clapping along to the beat. Boone felt a sense of pride wash over him. This was more than just a gathering. It was a celebration of community, a testament to what they had built together. As he looked around, Boone spotted Mary laughing with a group of kids, her genuine smile infectious. He walked over, joining in on the fun. "Hey, how about a dance?" he asked, extending his hand. "Is this you asking me to show off my moves?" Mary teased, but she took his hand, and they began to sway to the music, laughter bubbling up between them. The night wore on, filled with laughter, dancing, and stories shared under the starry sky. Boone felt as if the weight of the world had been lifted from his shoulders. The fear and uncertainty that had once loomed over him had transformed into a vibrant tapestry of connection, love, and hope. When the night began to wind down, Boone gathered everyone around for a final toast. He raised his glass high, his heart full. To friendship, to community, and to the bonds that hold us together. May we always remember the strength we find in one another. The crowd cheered, glasses clinking together as they celebrated not just the evening, but the relationships forged in the light of shared experiences. In that moment, Boone felt a profound sense of belonging. The community he had fought to build was no longer a distant dream. It was a reality, thriving and alive. As the guests began to leave, Boone felt a deep gratitude for each person who had come. The connections they had built were not just about gatherings. They were about lifting each other up, celebrating the mundane moments, and weathering the storms together. As the last of the lights dimmed and the sounds of laughter faded into the night, Boone took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The hidden cache buried beneath the soil had not just sparked a moment of connection, it had ignited a movement of togetherness. It had awakened a community that had been dormant for too long, reminding them all of the importance of human connection. In the quiet of his ranch, Boone understood that the act of digging deeper had not only unearthed supplies, but it had also unearthed the spirit of resilience that lay within his neighbors and himself. The world outside might still be chaotic, but within this sanctuary of friendship, hope flourished. As he turned to head inside, Boone took one last look at the stars, the vast universe above seeming to echo the promise he had made to himself, to cherish these bonds, to nurture the connections, and to ensure that no neighbor ever felt alone again. With a heart full of hope, Boone stepped inside, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that he was part of something larger than himself. Together, they would face the world, hand in hand, hearts united. As the summer days rolled on, Boone Thompson found himself reflecting on how much had changed in his life and the community around him. The gatherings had become a cornerstone of their small town, a place where neighbors shared not just food and laughter, but their stories, their hopes, and their struggles. Each event seemed to deepen the bonds that connected them, and Boone felt a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced before. However, beneath the surface of this newfound camaraderie, Boone sensed a lingering unease, an undercurrent of unspoken fears that still haunted his neighbors. It was the kind of uncertainty that whispered through the quiet corners of their conversations, hidden behind smiles and laughter. One evening, after a particularly successful potluck, Boone found himself sitting alone on his porch, the stars twinkling above him, contemplating the complexities of human connection. His mind wandered back to the cache he had unearthed months ago. The items he had discovered had served as a catalyst for connection, but they were also a stark reminder of the fears that had gripped the nation in the face of uncertainty. The Y2K panic had been one instance, but there were many other challenges that communities faced: economic struggles, natural disasters, and personal hardships. Boone wanted to ensure that the bonds they had formed were not just a reaction to fear, but a proactive approach to supporting one another through whatever might come next. Days later, fueled by his thoughts, Boone decided to reach out to Greg and Mary to discuss his idea. He wanted to create a community initiative, a project that would not only strengthen their connections, but also empower them to face challenges together. That afternoon, Boone invited them over to his ranch, eager to share his vision. When they arrived, Boone welcomed them with warm smiles and fresh lemonade, the sweet scent of summer filling the air. "I'm glad you both could make it," he said, motioning for them to sit on the porch. "I've been thinking a lot about what's next for our community." Mary leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "I'd like to start a community resource program," Boone explained, his excitement bubbling over. "We can establish a network where neighbors can share resources, skills, and support. If someone needs help with repairs, we can coordinate a group to assist. If someone is struggling financially, we can set up a way to lend a hand." Greg nodded, his enthusiasm matching Boone's. "That sounds great. It's a way to build on what we've already started." "But how do we organize it?" Boone had thought about this too. "I was thinking we could start with a meeting, get everyone together to discuss what resources we have to offer and what we might need. We can create a directory of skills, whether it's carpentry, cooking, gardening, or tutoring. We could also organize skill-sharing workshops." Mary clapped her hands together, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I love it. We could even have a community day where everyone can bring what they're willing to teach or share. It could be a fun way to kick things off while also reinforcing those bonds. Boone felt a thrill of hope at the thought. Exactly. And it's a chance for people to step out of their comfort zones, meet new faces, and strengthen our community spirit. The three of them spent the rest of the afternoon brainstorming ideas, sketching out plans, and discussing logistics. They decided to hold the first meeting at the barn with a potluck to encourage participation. As they made their plans, Boone felt a renewed sense of purpose. This initiative could not only help his neighbors but also reinforce the connections they had forged in recent months. The following week, Boone and his friends swung into action, creating colorful flyers to distribute around town. They placed them on community boards in the diner and at the local church, spreading the word about the upcoming meeting. The excitement in the air was palpable, and Boone felt a sense of anticipation building among the townspeople. When the night of the community meeting arrived, Boone stood in the barn, filled with a mix of nervous energy and excitement. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a warm glow over the space. The tables were adorned with offerings from friends, homemade dishes, baked goods, and drinks that filled the air with delightful aromas. Neighbors began to trickle in, their faces lighting up at the sight of familiar friends and the promise of community. Boone greeted each person warmly, his heart swelling with gratitude. As the barn filled up, he took a moment to observe the gathering, the children playing games, the adults chatting, and the atmosphere buzzing with excitement. Once everyone had settled, Boone stepped up to the front of the barn, feeling a sense of responsibility wash over him. He cleared his throat and smiled at the crowd. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's so heartening to see so many familiar faces gathered here. We've built something special over the last few months, and I believe we can take it even further. He paused to let his words sink in before continuing. Tonight, we're here to talk about how we can support each other as a community. With everything happening in the world, it's important that we don't just rely on each other for the good times, but also stand together through challenges. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Boone felt encouraged. He shared his vision for the Community Resource Program, outlining their plans for workshops, skill sharing, and support networks. Together, we can create something that not only helps us today, but also prepares us for whatever comes next. If we know our neighbors' skills, we can lend a hand when times get tough, Boone concluded. The room erupted in applause, and Boone felt a wave of relief and joy wash over him. He watched as neighbors began to form small groups, discussing their own resources and skills. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the sound of laughter and conversation, a testament to the spirit of connection they had cultivated. As the evening continued, they moved to share their skills and ideas. Boone watched as Mary facilitated a group discussing cooking classes, while Greg took charge of organizing a workshop for home repairs. Others brought up ideas for community gardening, childcare exchanges, and tutoring programs. Each contribution built upon the last, reinforcing the fabric of their community. As the night wound down, Boone realized that this initiative was more than just a series of workshops. It was a commitment to one another, an acknowledgement that while the world outside might be uncertain, they had each other to rely on. In that moment, Boone felt a profound sense of purpose and belonging. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The Community Resource Program took off faster than Boone had anticipated. Neighbors began sharing their skills, gardening tips, cooking classes, DIY home repairs, and even financial planning sessions. The barn became a hub of learning, laughter, and camaraderie, echoing with the sounds of shared experiences. One sunny Saturday morning, Boone found himself teaching a group of eager children how to plant seeds in the community garden they had started. The once barren patch of land behind the barn blossomed into a vibrant space filled with rows of tomatoes, peppers, and herbs, each plant a symbol of their collective effort and commitment to one another. As the children dug their hands into the soil, Boone took a moment to step back and watch. He marveled at how far they had come, from a hidden stash of supplies to a thriving community united in support and friendship. The conversations and laughter that filled the air were a testament to the spirit of resilience and hope that had taken root among them. One of the children, a bright girl named Emma, looked up at Boone with dirt-covered hands and a wide smile. "Mr. Boone, can we grow flowers too? I want to make the garden pretty." Boone chuckled, kneeling beside her. "Absolutely. Flowers would be a wonderful addition. They'll attract bees and butterflies, making it a beautiful place for everyone." With Emma's suggestion added to the agenda, the garden flourished, transforming into a colorful oasis that brought joy to the community. Neighbors would gather not only to work, but also to relax and enjoy the fruits of their labor. The simple act of planting became a symbol of growth, not just in the soil but in the hearts of everyone involved. As the summer turned to fall, Boone decided to hold a harvest celebration to honor the hard work and dedication everyone had put into the community resource program. He envisioned a day filled with food, games, and music, a culmination of their efforts and a celebration of the bonds they had formed. The day of the harvest celebration arrived, and Boone's excitement was palpable. He and his friends spent the morning setting up the barn and the surrounding area, stringing lights and hanging decorations made by the children. Tables overflowed with freshly harvested produce from the garden, showcasing the fruits of their labor. As families arrived, laughter and chatter filled the air, creating an atmosphere of joy and togetherness. Boone greeted each person with a smile, feeling a deep sense of connection to everyone present. The celebration was not just about the food, it was a celebration of community spirit, resilience, and love. As the afternoon wore on, Boone gathered everyone together for a moment of reflection. He stood before the crowd, his heart swelling with pride. "Thank you all for coming today to celebrate the fruits of our labor, not just in the garden but in our lives. We've built something truly special together, and I want to remind you all that these bonds are what will carry us through any challenges we may face." The crowd erupted in applause, and Boone felt a wave of warmth and gratitude wash over him. He knew that this celebration was just the beginning. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the gathering, he realized that the community they had built was not just a response to fear, it was a proactive commitment to nurturing each other, come what may. As the evening drew to a close, Boone looked around at the smiling faces, the laughter, and the sense of unity that filled the air. He felt an overwhelming sense of hope for the future, knowing that together they could face anything that life threw their way. As the first chill of winter settled into the Texas Panhandle, Boone Thompson stood on his porch, gazing out at the field that had once been alive with summer festivities. Now the landscape was draped in a blanket of white snow, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of harvest time. The beauty of the winter scene brought with it a somber reminder of the challenges that lay ahead for many in the community. Boone had witnessed the struggles that his neighbors faced, from rising heating bills to food insecurity, and he was determined to do something about it. The success of their recent outreach initiative had filled Boone with hope, but he knew that winter would test the bonds they had forged. With that thought in mind, he gathered Mary and Greg for a meeting to discuss their winter outreach plans. Over cups of hot cocoa, Boone laid out his vision. "We need to keep the momentum going," he said, his voice steady. "We should organize a winter drive for warm clothing, blankets, and food. People are going to need help during these colder months." Mary nodded thoughtfully. "That's a great idea. But we also need to make sure our neighbors know that it's okay to ask for help. There are probably families out there who are struggling but don't want to reach out." Greg leaned forward, his expression serious. "How about we create a buddy system? We can pair neighbors together to check in on each other. It will help foster a sense of community and ensure that everyone feels supported." Boone felt a surge of excitement at their ideas. "Absolutely. We can start by reaching out to families during our winter drive, letting them know we're here for them. We'll also set up collection points around town for clothing and food donations." Fueled by determination, they spent the next few weeks preparing for the winter drive. They reached out to local organizations, secured donations, and spread the word through flyers, social media, and word of mouth. Boone found joy in rallying the community once again, knowing that they were coming together for a common cause. On the day of the winter drive, Boone stood at the barn, watching as neighbors arrived with bags of donations in hand. The atmosphere was filled with warmth and camaraderie, as friends greeted each other with hugs and smiles. Boone felt a sense of pride swell within him. This was a testament to the strength of their community. As the donations piled up, Boone's heart raced with gratitude. He felt a sense of purpose as he helped sort through the items, organizing warm clothes, blankets, and non-perishable food into designated areas. The barn soon transformed into a haven of warmth and generosity, a symbol of the resilience they had cultivated together. Midway through the drive, Boone noticed a familiar face in the crowd, Mrs. Harper, an elderly woman from down the road who often kept to herself. She approached with a hesitant smile, her arms filled with bags. Boone walked over to her, his heart swelling with concern. "Mrs. Harper, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you for your donations," he said warmly. "Oh, it's nothing, dear," she replied, her voice soft. "I just wanted to help where I could. But truth be told, I could use a little help myself this winter." Boone nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "You're not alone, Mrs. Harper. We've set up a buddy system and we'd love for you to be part of it. We can check in on you regularly and make sure you have everything you need." Her eyes glistened with gratitude. "That would mean so much to me, Boone. I've been feeling a bit isolated lately." Boone felt a pang of empathy for her. "We're all in this together. You're part of our community, and we want to make sure everyone feels supported." As the drive continued, Boone watched as neighbors not only brought donations but also engaged in conversations, offering their skills and support to one another. The sense of connection was tangible, and Boone felt a wave of hope wash over him. Later that week, Boone received a call from Mary. "Boone, we've had such a great response to the winter drive, but I think we need to do more. People are still struggling, and I'm worried about those who might not have come forward." Boone agreed. "What do you have in mind?" "I think we should organize a community meal, something warm and hearty that people can come to and share. It can be a chance for everyone to connect and also help those who might be feeling isolated." "That's a fantastic idea," Boone replied, feeling the excitement build. "Let's set a date and start planning." They collaborated to arrange the meal, reaching out to local businesses for donations and enlisting neighbors to help with cooking and serving. Boone felt a renewed sense of purpose as he watched the community come together once again, their shared commitment evident in every interaction. When the day of the community meal arrived, Boone found himself bustling around the barn, setting tables and decorating with string lights. The barn overflowed with the aroma of homemade stews, warm bread and pies, an inviting testament to the efforts of everyone involved. As guests began to arrive, Boone greeted each person at the door, feeling the warmth of their presence. Families gathered, sharing stories and laughter, while the children played in the corner, their joy infectious. Boone took a moment to step back and absorb the scene, the barn alive with connection and community spirit. As everyone settled down to eat, Boone stepped up to address the crowd. "Thank you all for joining us tonight. We've faced challenges this winter, but together, we've created a network of support, compassion, and love. Let's continue to lift each other up, knowing that we are never alone." The crowd erupted in applause, and Boone felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. As they shared a meal, neighbors exchanged ideas and offered support, reinforcing the bonds they had built over the months. After dinner, Boone glanced around the barn, taking in the smiles and laughter. He spotted Mrs. Harper chatting with a group of neighbors, her demeanor lighter than he had ever seen. It warmed his heart to witness the transformation firsthand. As the evening wore on, Boone joined in the conversations, sharing stories and laughter as they embraced the spirit of community. The meal was more than just food. It represented their commitment to one another, a reminder that even in the harshest of winters, they could find strength in unity. That night, as Boone returned home, he reflected on the journey they had taken together. The outreach initiative had blossomed into something more than he had ever imagined. It was a living testament to the power of community, one that encouraged vulnerability and provided support during tough times. Winter had brought challenges, but it had also illuminated the resilience of the human spirit. Boone knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, hand in hand, hearts united. As he settled into bed, he felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that they had built a community that would endure, no matter what challenges the future might hold. As spring settled gently over the Texas Panhandle, Boone Thompson felt a renewed sense of hope in the air. After enduring the harshness of winter, the community had emerged stronger, united by the outreach initiative that had rallied their spirits and fostered deep connections. Boone stood on his porch one sunny morning, gazing at the vibrant blooms in his garden, reflecting on how far they had come. Determined to keep the momentum going, Boone decided to hold another community meeting. He wanted to check in with his neighbors and ensure everyone felt supported as they transitioned into a new season. Gathering his notes, he made his way to the barn to discuss plans with Mary and Greg. "Hey, Boone, perfect timing," Mary exclaimed as she arranged some materials for an upcoming workshop. "I was just thinking we should host a gardening workshop. The community garden is thriving, and this would be a fantastic way to share knowledge." "That's a brilliant idea," Boone replied, picturing families working together in the garden. "We can emphasize the importance of growing our own food, especially after what we faced during winter." Greg joined in, carrying a stack of flyers. "I printed announcements for the meeting. We need to invite everyone to share their needs and ideas. Keeping communication open is vital for our community's growth." After setting a date for the meeting, they brainstormed other ideas to include in the agenda, discussing potential workshops on financial literacy and mental health support. Boone felt invigorated by the possibilities, knowing they were building something meaningful. As the meeting day approached, Boone and his friends worked diligently to prepare. They posted flyers, reached out through social media, and encouraged everyone to come share their thoughts. Excitement buzzed in the air as they received positive responses, eager to participate. On the night of the meeting, Boone stood in the barn, filled with nervous anticipation. Lanterns cast a warm glow over the space as neighbors filed in, filling the room with laughter and chatter. Boone welcomed everyone and expressed gratitude for their presence, feeling a sense of pride in the community they had cultivated. "Tonight we're creating a safe space for everyone to share their struggles and seek support," Boone stated. "You're not alone in this." As the meeting progressed, neighbors began sharing their stories. Some spoke of personal loss while others discussed financial difficulties. Each story brought forth compassion and understanding, fostering an environment where vulnerability was met with empathy. Mary took the lead and shared her plans for the gardening workshop, and the crowd responded positively. Greg suggested a seed exchange to promote biodiversity in their gardens. Boone watched as the excitement in the room grew. It was evident that the community had taken ownership of their outreach initiative. When the floor opened for attendees to express their needs, hands shot up, and neighbors discussed childcare challenges and transportation issues. Boone took notes, committed to addressing these concerns collectively. As the meeting concluded, Boone felt a sense of accomplishment. The community had reaffirmed its commitment to support one another, and he was grateful for the open dialogue they had shared. Following the meeting, Boone, Mary, and Greg quickly organized the gardening workshop, inviting neighbors to share their skills. Families gathered in the community garden, planting seeds and sharing gardening tips, reinforcing the bonds they had built. Amid the activity, Boone saw Emma, the girl who had initially suggested flowers for the garden, enthusiastically working with her mother. Boone knelt beside her. "You're doing great, Emma. This garden will be beautiful." She grinned, filled with pride. "I can't wait to see everything bloom. I want to help organize a flower festival when they're ready." "That sounds wonderful," Boone replied, impressed by her initiative. As spring continued, the community garden transformed into a colorful oasis, a tangible result of their collective efforts. Boone felt deeply fulfilled watching neighbors come together, sharing knowledge, laughter, and camaraderie. The outreach initiative had evolved into a vital support network, empowering everyone to face challenges head-on. One evening, Boone received a call from Mary. "Boone, we've had such great responses, but I feel we need to do more. People are still struggling and I worry about those not coming forward." Boone agreed, and they organized a community meal, something warm and hearty for everyone to gather around. They reached out to local businesses for support and enlisted neighbors to help prepare the meal. When the day arrived, the barn overflowed with the delicious aroma of homemade food. Boone watched as families arrived, sharing stories and laughter. The meal represented more than just food. It was a celebration of their commitment to one another. As Boone stood before the crowd, he felt a sense of pride swell. "Thank you for gathering tonight. We've faced challenges, but together we're building a community rooted in kindness and support." Applause erupted and Boone felt hopeful. The community had transformed. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving, united in purpose and compassion. As the evening wound down, Boone reflected on their journey. The outreach initiative, once a response to fear, had blossomed into a living testament to the strength and resilience of human connection. Together, they stood ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in their ability to support one another through thick and thin. As the days turned into weeks, Boone Thompson watched the community around him continue to flourish. The outreach initiative had become a vibrant tapestry of support, woven together with threads of kindness, resilience, and shared experiences. The community garden was now a hub of activity, with families gathering to tend to their plants, exchange gardening tips, and enjoy the fruits of their labor. One warm afternoon, Boone sat on his porch, sipping sweet tea and soaking in the sounds of laughter drifting from the garden. He noticed Emma leading a group of children in planting flowers, their small hands working diligently in the soil. It brought a smile to his face to see the younger generation embracing the spirit of community and connection he had worked so hard to cultivate. But as Boone reflected on their progress, a familiar thought crept into his mind. The world beyond their small town was still filled with uncertainty. Despite the bonds they had built, he knew that challenges would always arise. It was essential to remain vigilant and prepared, to ensure no one felt isolated or unsupported. That evening, Boone gathered with Mary and Greg to discuss the future of their community initiatives. They met at the barn, where the air buzzed with excitement from the ongoing gardening workshop. Boone opened the discussion. "I've been thinking about how we can continue to strengthen our community. While we've made incredible progress, we should explore ways to sustain this momentum." Mary leaned forward, her eyes bright. "What if we set up a regular community check-in? We could schedule monthly meetings where everyone can share updates, needs, and successes. It would keep the lines of communication open." Greg nodded enthusiastically. "That's a great idea. These check-ins could also include guest speakers, local experts who can provide valuable information on topics like financial literacy, mental health, and emergency preparedness." Boone felt a surge of excitement at their ideas. Yes, we could create a resource calendar, listing upcoming workshops, meetings, and speakers. This way, everyone stays informed and involved. As they brainstormed, Boone felt a sense of purpose and responsibility for their community. He knew their outreach initiative had transformed lives, and he was committed to ensuring it continued to do so. In the weeks that followed, they implemented their plans. The monthly check-ins became a staple of community life. Neighbors gathered at the barn to share their progress, voice concerns, and discuss ideas. Each meeting was filled with laughter, encouragement, and a sense of unity. One evening, as Boone walked home after a particularly uplifting meeting, he felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He had witnessed the transformation of his community. It had become a place where people felt comfortable sharing their struggles and victories, a network of support that extended beyond their small town. That night, as he settled into bed, Boone reflected on the journey they had taken together. The hidden cache that had once sparked fear had ignited a movement of hope and resilience. Boone understood that while challenges would always arise, the strength of their bonds would guide them through. He closed his eyes, feeling a deep sense of peace. They were no longer just neighbors. They had become a family, united in purpose and compassion. And as he drifted off to sleep, Boone knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand, heart to heart.